That's one reason that I'm really glad to be here at a Center for Spiritual Living, because we think that all people are creations of God and they are perfect just like they are. And that's why we're going to talk about love on a spectrum this morning, right? Because all people are holy, right? And so, one of the most revolutionary people of all times was Jesus of Nazareth, right? He commanded his followers, as in the reading that Michael had from the Bible this morning from John, love one another. And as I have loved you, so you must love one another. He didn't qualify that, certain types of people. He said, love one another, all people. Jesus loved everyone unconditionally. He didn't care whether people were Jews or Romans or Samaritans. He didn't care whether someone was a fisherman or a tax collector, a centurion, or a poor widow. He loved them all. He healed them all. In the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes has a passionate interpretation of the reading from John. Love is a central flame of the universe, nay, the very fire itself. It is written that God is love, that we are its expressed likeness, the image of the eternal being. Love is self-givingness through creation. That's through all of us. The impartation of the divine through the human, right? And so God expresses its love through each one of us, and we're all part of that puzzle. Each one of us is an important part, and without any one of us, the puzzle is incomplete. God is love, and love is God. It means that because God is love and we are created by the eternal being from itself, that means that our nature is also love, right? And this includes every one of us. And when we love, we are expressing that unconditional love of our Creator, of our Source. And when we love completely, we feel fully alive, right? Fully alive. We don't have to cram it into a certain way of being. It is being who we are and being proud of it and sharing it with the world, loving and living out loud, right? So nature has an amazing array of life forms. When you look in the four-legged and two-legged creatures that walk the earth, birds and insects that fly through the air, fish and microorganisms that swim in the sea, there's tree and plants that grow tall towards the sun, and the worms and the fungi that flourish underneath the ground. You know, and within each type of form, like human beings, there is also diversity. In fact, no two people are alike. And even in the natural world, there are animals that are homosexual, and pansexual, and monogamous, and um, uh, polyamorous. There you go. Thank you. But but it's all there, right? So Petra Wildis, a minister in Dallas CSL, she says all of life is the expression of the one life. All creation is the body of the infinite, expressing its experiencing itself in infinitely diverse ways. This is necessary, or the universal spirit would not be fully infinite. Creation is where love becomes actualized, and love becomes more of itself. It needs you, me, and the whole universe to become all of the infinite ways it can be. Now, Fred Rogers, you probably remember him from Mr. Rogers on TV when your kids were young, or you were young. And so he said, knowing that we can be loved exactly as we are gives us all the best opportunity for growing into the healthiest of people. Pretty basic, right? This means loving people just as they are, whatever their race or ethnicity, whatever their nationality or political affiliation, whatever their age, young, old, or in between, whatever their gender identity or sexual orientation. Each one of us has been created to be who we are and who we were meant to be as part of that one life that is God. The infinite life of the divine can only be expressed in all of its glory and fullness when each person evolves to express They're part of that whole universe. Now, love exists on a spectrum of ways to love and be loved. Every person experiences love and expresses it in their own way. So let's look at some of those different ways. Now, there's some newer language that a lot of us have had to learn to understand the full range of possibilities that Gen X and um, the younger people just, well, they of course know it, but for us, we stumble and say, exactly what is that? So let me help you out a little bit this morning. So some people prefer heterosexual relationships between a man and a woman, but others prefer homosexual relationships between two people of the same sex, right? Whether it's two women or two men. Pansexual people don't consider gender when they choose who to love. They just love, right? Some bisexual might be in this category too. Some people prefer monogamous relationships, while others prefer polyamorous, wherein they love multiple people at the same time, or they choose to remain celibate, right? All of these are increasingly part of what's accepted in society these days. Now, according to Human Rights Watch, a nonprofit organization, in 2023, 67 of the 195 countries in the world have laws criminalizing same-sex relations between consenting adults. While some nations have decriminalized same-sex relationships and marriage in recent years, because it used to be more than 67, a few nations have increased penalties for these relationships in recent years. It was only in 2015 that the U.S. Supreme Court recognized the right for same-sex couples to marry in the U.S. everywhere, right? And what a revolution that's made for so many people and brought so much happiness. How do we each of us feel about our gender identity? For some people, when I took practitioner class, there was a class in practitioner training, and it went through all of these issues about sexuality and love. And for some people, it was very challenging just to explore the world of people that are on the spectrum of LGBTQ, which means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, queer, questioning, and more, right? Non-binary. A Pew 2022 research study found that 1.6% of U.S. adults 18 and older identified as a gender other than their gender identified at birth. 1.6% of the whole U.S. population, 2022. Now, among the 18 to 29-year-olds, Gen Z, 3% identified as non-binary and 2% as transgender. That's 5% of Gen X, right? In the 50-plus group, only 0.3% identified themselves as non-binary or transgender. So, a big change. Now, is that a change in who we are? In those last 10 years, people have increasingly to identify themselves as he or she or they, all right? So some people find it annoying, one more woke fad that they have to they get to dislike. But for the people that choose to identify themselves as transsexual or binary, having you refer to them as they is self-affirming, right? Or maybe if they're transsexual and they want to be the sex that they've adopted, right? The way that they've always felt for their entire life. Some groups have blamed this trend on woke groups brainwashing their children. But there's other scientists that have proposed that the rates of non-binary and transgender identification have not actually increased. Instead, our culture now has words to describe what these people have always felt. And they now have a language to say, oh, that's what it is, right? They have a vocabulary to explain who they are. So going back into the practitioner training class, every year I've been in that class or taught it several times, and every year that I was there, everyone had deeply held and impactful belief and experiences regarding sexuality and love. If you've been in went through practitioner training. That's always a very juicy class for people to sit through. And so how, there are questions like, how are love and sexuality related or not related, right? Does sexual abuse affect the victim? How does it affect the abuser? How do we heal and feel comfortable with ourselves after something like that? Or if whatever our choices are about our gender identity or our sexual choices are different than mainstream society, and they treat us as outliers. Only when we are healed can we as practitioners help other people to heal, right? So loving ourselves as we are and loving others as they are is the secret to allowing that fullness of spirit to be expressed. And when we love someone exactly as they are, not forcing them to fit into the standard mold, it often requires us to embrace ways of being that are different than our own cultural norms, right? What's important about our relationships, whatever they are, is that they're loving, they're authentic, and respectful of ourselves and of each person that we love, right? We don't have to be in an intimate sexual relationship with someone that's different than us, but respecting them for who they are in their own relationship is very much part of what can be freeing and norm for all of us. Love on a spectrum is not always comfortable, but it helps us to grow in our personal understanding of love and compassion for each other, right? And just as exercise is necessary to develop our physical muscles, experiences of love help us to grow our support and our ability to love and to be compassionate and understanding. As we love, we encounter both moments of joy and moments of pain, both light and darkness, comfort and discomfort. And much of the pain and suffering is released when we remember that we are connected to all people as a part of ourselves, as a part of that one infinite life. So any criticism we make is really self-criticism, a part of ourselves. Any love that we share is also self-love, right? We don't have to love others the same way to love and accept one another just as we are. Thomas Merton said, "The beginning of love is to let those we love be perfectly themselves and not to twist them to fit our own image. Otherwise, we love only the reflection of ourselves we find in them." In a long-term love relationship or beginning of one, there's a lot of people that come in and say, "Oh, I'm going to love this person and I'm going to fix them up so they'll be better," right? And so they spend the relationship trying to fix this person and make them someone they're not. And so, one of the things I learned early on is that you have to love someone just as they are. Now, they might evolve on their own, but you have to love them as they are because that's who they are right now. And it's okay, right? So we have to accept it. And then that allows us to accept ourselves, because I think I have a few quirks that I'm really glad that Michael puts up with, right? So love allows each one of us to be ourselves. In fact, love requires us to be ourselves if we are to be authentic, if we are to be the part of that one infinite life that we are. When you're in the get together with someone when courting, everyone tries to be perfect. And, they want to be this perfect person that this person that they love will love perfectly. Well, if we put this false front on, they're falling in love with that false front and not who we really are. So it's really good if from the beginning we, one, figure out who we are, and two, we act from that way. And that we act in ways that are loving and accepting to all of the people in our life, and most especially that special someone that we want to be with, and love them as they are. Elizabeth Lesser, in her book Marrow, she says, "Deep in the center of the self are the soul cells of who you really are. Dig for them, believe in them, and offer them to another person, and you can heal each other's hearts and keep love alive forever. Now, the Centers for Spiritual Living are endeavoring to practice what they preach. So they're being centered firmly in spirit and also inclusive and affirming of the ways we show up in the world as humans, engaging with people such as they are. Now, CSL has a Next Gen Retreat. It's an annual event for people that are 18 to 35 or 40-ish to explore science of mind in their own unique way. And this year they're meeting October 20th through the 23rd, Friday night through a Monday, and at Camp Cedar Ridge in Verona, Oregon. That's the same place that Teen Camp is held, and lots of other camps now that we own it. So this year's theme for Next Gen Retreat is Embrace Your Fire, Say Hello to the New You. Now the subtitle, a little more controversial, is Uncensored AF. All right. Now, a lot of people would be offended by that, and you can look it up if you want to know what it means. But but the point that they're saying that is they want everyone to be their own authentic self, to live out loud, and they want to disrupt religion from the way that it's always been. It's not serving them. It's dying out the way that it's been. And so they feel spiritually inspired and awakened, and they want to experience that together authentically. You know, when you connect with spirit, it just comes out. And that's what this retreat is all about. They want to love and live out loud, be fully alive. And so the attendees, they come from centers around the globe, knowing a lot of the same New Thought songs and language and values. But one thing that makes it a Next Gen Retreat, besides the language, is the list of agreements that attendees develop together through loving discussion. The agreements ensure that everyone gets their needs met by the community. For instance, the participants' name tags, they include their pronouns, she, he, or they, right? So you can get it right. And your hug preferences, you know, whether you like to be hugged or don't like to be hugged, or you're worried about COVID, or you want to wear your mask, or whatever it is, you let people know, and everybody respects that, right? It's welcoming and affirming for all people. So they have 4 days planned for self-love, authenticity, diversity, forgiveness, and empowerment workshops, right? Sounds like a CSL convention to me. So they support each attendee to return then to their home communities, fully realized and prepared to step further into leadership. And in fact, many of the younger CSL ministers that might have grown up through teen camp, but then they go to the Next Gen retreats, and they really decide that this is what I want to be, what I want to share with the world. And so that's where a lot of them have come from. So pulling all of this together, each one of us is perfect just as we are. We are created with love, with a divine imprints along a spectrum of gender identity, sexual orientations, racial and ethnic heritages, lives that we live in so many different ways. And each one of us seeks to live and love out loud by being ourselves. Sometimes it's a beautiful, and sometimes it's not so much a pretty sight. But we are all here to be loved and loving in our own way. When we love and accept each other just as we are, we empower each other to be our best self and to live fully. This may require a stretch, a big stretch maybe, to learn and understand people who live by cultural norms different than our own. But with that discomfort comes growth. And all of life is relationship. All of our experiences serve to connect us with that spirit within us and with all people, right? It's always when I encounter someone that really is challenging to me, if I look deep into their eyes and I connect with that heart of heart within them, there is God. It is always there. It is whole, perfect, and complete, just as it is. And the form is always evolving to express that and more beautifully, more perfectly every day. But Shana Dilwayo said, "The world says fall in love, but the universe says rise in love." Let's take this to prayer. And so we know that there is one power, one loving presence. There is nothing else, nothing outside of it, nothing beyond it. And knowing this, I am a part of that one power, that one presence. I am an expression of love in the world, as is each person here in the center and following my voice. Love is my true nature, and every moment I choose love. I am a spiritual love fountain that is sourced by infinite divine love. Whenever I feel like I don't have enough to give, it's about plugging back into that source, and instantaneously I am filled with this infinite love that is divine, this infinite understanding, and I can stand up and share this overflowing love with the world. I am sustained by love. I am healed by love. I see the paths of connection that love weaves through my life and all of creation. And I am guided by love to express this love, even the most challenging moments of my life. It is not to be a victim, but it is to stand up for love as the truth of life. And to see how we are called in each moment to follow that path to that greater expression of the truth of who each of us is. And as I love myself, my true self, my higher self, and all of humanity are lifted up together, there is this greater and fuller expression of life. And so, what is created from this consciousness of oneness and in love, of consciousness of the power and presence of the truth of all life, is magnificent. It is glorious. And so as I look out at the world, I see all the diversity of humanity and love it for that expression of the divine that it is. And I love myself as God's beloved, right here, right now as I am. And I am so grateful to know this, to live it, to accept it as the truth, and know that I have nothing that I need to change. Yes, there is an evolution of life to greater and greater things, but I am created perfectly as this seed that is unfolding through this life. And so I am so grateful to know this, to see it, to be empowered. And as I release these words to the law says, yes, yes, my beloved, yes. And life is fantastic. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. And together we say, and so it is.